Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Church Security Answer, man. I hope you're paying attention to these terrible events that are going on around the world that went on over the Easter weekend. Three separate incidents, three separate shootings over the Easter weekend. Vaslurus, South Africa, one of the first ones I want to talk about at number three. Four suspects entered a church, began firing shots. Two congregants were struck by the gunfire, one's deceased. The suspects basically it looked like their main focus probably was to rob the churchgoers. So right in the middle of the service, this stuff breaks out, this violence, and they begin to rob the churchgoers of their phones and of their valuables. Now, this looks like it was a little bit of a crime spree around Johannesburg, South Africa. If you look at Vaslurus, it's kind of south east of Johannesburg, part of a probably called a suburb, I'm sure, of that area. And there were several of these incidents that occurred in that region just over the holiday weekend. In Ivory Park, South Africa, which is just northeast, a little bit further out of Johannesburg, but northeast, three gunmen entered a garage type church, started firing on congregants, instructed people to lie down. It was basically a good old fashioned shooting and robbery situation. They stole the valuables from the people. One person died from their gunshot injuries. So, we take a look at this stuff. It's the police. They're calling it gang related. These two incidents, and there was two others that were just basically some shots fired and some robbery in the Johannesburg area as well. So, and they're calling it a gang related. So this is a gang that's running around, decided to do this. Is that far-fetched for us to have that kind of situation go on here? No. Whether it's from people that might migrate here and have those tactics in mind, be a little bit more tolerant of violence, or whether it's our own gangs that we already know can be violent here, or a group of people get together, or maybe even a lone wolf that we're always talking about that decides to be violent against one of our congregations. Are we preparing for this? And we got to talk about it. We're not doing our work if we're not discussing these things. If we're just trying to live in our little bubble and deal with what we can, and we're not thinking about the future, I'm not sure that that's a good situation. So I want to make sure and call it to your attention. And at number one for my discussion for shooting incidents that occurred over the Easter weekend, Limpopo, South Africa. A man enters a church during a service and basically just comes in, shoots his wife who's in the service, and she is now deceased. So terrible, another terrible situation, just a plague of violence over the weekend in this region. And, I want to challenge you. I want to be challenging you and your teams. I hope that you'll share this. If you're an individual, what would you do in these situations? Are you prepared as an individual at your church, especially if your church doesn't have security to protect you? What are you doing to protect yourself in these situations? And so, I just want to give you some takeaways from this. This is a lot of junk going on in that region, but it could go on here. So what can we take away from it? What are you preparing for this level of violence? I don't want to sit here and just have a podcast, have a show where I'm not really challenging you. I'm just talking about stuff. I want to challenge you, and I don't want you to be necessarily comfortable every week in what you're doing and basically saying that's all we can do. I want to challenge you to begin to look, what can we do more to protect our people? What else is going on out there in our region, as we'll talk about here in just a moment? What are your team going to do if this kind of thing happened? And it's totally feasible that it could happen. What are you going to do in that situation? Are you looking at securing doors? I hear from many of you that secure doors. Do you have any kind of way to protect from people getting in through those doors? Are you putting any film on the doors that is a little bit resistant towards just shattering or bulletproof? And I'm not, it's expensive to make the windows bulletproof, but we can put that film on them to make them a little bit not as easy to get into, not just shatter and work our way in like we saw with the Nashville shooter last year. So can we put some film on the doors? Do we have a guard at the doors? Can we lock the doors? those kind of things, or at least a watch person around those doors so that maybe we can be a deterrent. And then, and can we be armed at the door? If we're not armed right now, can we work towards that or find a method? Can we hire someone who is armed? Maybe our policies don't allow us to be armed, but could we hire an off-duty officer or hire a armed security guard that could watch our doors and help protect us? And then I strongly encourage you to, and there's lots of other things that we can think about doing besides just what I'm talking to you about and just those couple of things that we mentioned. What can you do to improve these kinds of situations in your situation? Because I don't know each of your situations, but certainly share with me in the comments. And are you watching for an uptick in violence in your region? If these kind of things, I'm calling it to your attention because it's happening around the world. But if this kind of stuff begins to happen closer to home, and I hope you're even watching on your internet, on your cell phones and those kind of things on Saturdays and Sundays. Are you watching for what's going on in the region? Is there any kind of news, any violence towards churches in your area? And so pay attention to this kind of stuff so that we get better prepared for it. And set up your Google alerts to put in words like church shooting, church violence, stabbing at church, so you can get alerted to some of those kind of things that are going on as well. And there's plenty of videos to help you see how to set that stuff up if you're not sure how to do that. But let's get more in tune with what's going on, and just we need to be answering the what ifs. And these what ifs here are very serious and take some serious planning and some serious discussions for many of our churches. Some of you can handle it, some of you are ready to go, but even our biggest churches sometimes need a little bit of a brush up. So I hope you'll share this stuff. I hope you'll like and subscribe to this. I want to connect with you, and I certainly want you to leave a comment. Share with me what you're thinking, whether you're an attendee to a church or you're a member of a security team or you're a leader of a church or security team. Let's share information and have discussions about these items. And I hope you'll take a look at this next video. I'll see you inside this one because it's the next one that certainly YouTube thinks that you should watch in your church security journey.